that for timing on the intro music? My name is Andre Russo, and I'm the host of the RC Afterhours podcast. And this episode is titled number 82, Winter is Here / One More Flight. There's a good story behind that. Actually, I've been trying to do a podcast for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and just lack the overall content to kind of just punch out an episode, especially on my own. Got lots to cover today, actually, in the show, and lots of things to discuss about the podcast in 2020 and 2021 and so forth. But winter's here. Winter's here in Canada. If you watched the video I did last weekend with the drop with the EC 1500, there was no snow. And then Sunday evening, Monday, Tuesday, there was snow. It's slushy now. It's melted off a little bit, but we're into it. So I've been flying the Dura Tundra version 1 on floats for the first time. That video will drop later in the week. And then I was flying the Skipper from H-King. And what else? Oh, just a couple other airplanes. Did a review on a little VTOL aircraft as well. You'll see all those videos coming out. And then I was all packed up, ready to go, and the sun was out, and it was looking nice. And I said, one more flight. And my UMX Timber on floats, it hit the goalpost again. That's the second time I've been victimized by that goalpost, and I was so annoyed with myself, so very, very annoyed. And welcome to everybody who's on the chat listening right now. Perfection, wow, thanks, dude. That is awesome. Thank you for supporting the podcast. We're gonna talk a lot about the stuff coming up, especially when it comes to the podcast and everything I want to try and do over the next little while. But like I said, I had no content, and then suddenly I had content for the show one more time. So my poor UMX Timber. It's kind of hard when you knock a plane like that, and I wasn't even really, I didn't want to. I didn't want to hurt the poor little thing. Looks like some foam tack and everything will go. I don't know what the video looks like yet, but I will definitely be checking it out and seeing how it and just see if you can actually see what was going on. Basically, I think it was the first time I was flying it on the DX9, and I discovered very quickly that all the switches were inverted over what I'd previously been flying with on my Tyrannus. So high and lower, if anybody has played with the stock settings from Horizon or Spectrum, everything is backwards to me. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm in the wind. Oh, I'm in safe. So all of a sudden the plane is limited in pitch. The wind has got it. So I'm like full power, full rudder, just really trying to control this thing, and I turned off safe and I hit the rate switch, and suddenly I had full control, full rates, and I put the thing in the high alpha, and I must have just touched the post, and down she went and spiraled. So there's a fuselage crack. I completely snapped one of the floats in half, and the wing has got a little damage, so I'm thinking foam tack tape and it'll be back up and running. But it was before that, other than a couple little nicks and scratches, it was, I'd kept that plane in pristine condition because the UMX planes are very delicate, so you tend to take a lot of care of them. But there we go. Suddenly we've got an intro. Suddenly we've got some flying and everything. And so today's show is basically going to be covering off some of my winter flying tips, some of the ideas into looking into the winter build season, and talking about some new products that are out on the market that are kind of cool, crazy, and expensive. And then I think I'm also going to just jump in and discuss my recent camera issues. Anybody notices I've been flying. Actually, I've been flying a lot more, and I've been shooting content, and I'm getting back into that. I'm actually going to do a whole YouTube video on some of the hardware that I use and some of the gear I use to talk about content creation, because I'm stepping that up. A lot of my old legacy hardware is starting to let me down, and the most recent hiccup was it's free. I mean, this camera is a GoPro Hero 7. It was free to me. It had a interaction with the terrain, and smacked it. The hit was hard enough that the power ribbon and the internal on the circuit board actually dislodged. So I passed it over to my crazy mad scientist of a dad, and he opened it up and everything. But what we're discovering is I think moisture or the dampness gets in there and it affects the power switch. And I've had the camera go down, and while I was shooting the Tundra video, it beeped and locked, and I lost a whole segment of footage and everything. Luckily, I had the 5 on the ground and my hat and other cameras and everything, so we got away with it. But I very quickly said, okay, this is the second or third time I've had this fault. I need something reliable. So I took advantage of some of the sales, and we're going to be playing in the future. I'll be doing a proper unboxing of this bad boy, but in my hands I've got the Osmos Action. So this is DJI's answer to the GoPro. It should be on par with the 7 that I have, so I should be getting a lot of good content. I was reluctant to switch brands because suddenly I'm in a different ecosystem, and this is something that I'm very cognizant of it, that I work around. If I get a camera, I want 2 or 3 batteries, maybe 4, because I shoot in the winter. Things get cold, things shut down. So that's always something I'm very aware of. And then suddenly all the mounts are different, right? So primarily the GoPro 7 has been my hat cam, but in the field I work with it. And I've gone through recent things where I've had to change my audio microphone on my recording. And the new one, you will see it, hear the difference in the video. For the Tundra, because the camera's on the ground and the wind is just howling, and then I switch over to the lapel mic with the windsock, and you can't hear the wind. So it's, when I say it's windy and everything, a lot of people have commented to me in person saying, I don't hear what you're talking about. But I'm like, well, hey, the new microphone works, and that new microphone came out because of the buzz issue from last time. So woo! So the gear, I'm making slow investments in the hardware. I'm trying to get my hands on a RunCam 4K, RunCam 2 4K. Working on that. Had some hiccups with RunCam as far as shipping and everything. So hopefully that comes out, and that we'll look for that for a future review. So investing in the equipment, everything, pushing for into 2021. But the biggest thing I want to say is that I am, yes, Alex is just saying in the chat, Andre's flying more is a good thing, and it is. It's good for the soul and everything. With everything with COVID with COVID-19, I was really reluctant. I don't go to the flying field. I'm sticking at the park and doing my park flying. I find the field I can't withdraw myself if I don't feel the situation is safe enough for me. So, but that's everybody's individual decisions. Hopefully into the spring, things will be a little bit more stable, and I can get out there and fly all those fuel planes, which are actually, the extra hasn't even been put away yet. I have to go and strip that down. I'm not satisfied, speaking of projects and everything, and we'll dive into that. I should put that into my show notes so it's something I should talk about. But the extra is going to get changed up a little bit, but that's part of the winter stuff. So right away, where is the web interface for this show? There we go. Oh, look at that. I got the wrong page up and everything. So I want to talk real quickly about our friends from the Hangar RC. Yeah, there they are. Okay, cookies. They are working. I actually was talking with Sam yesterday, and he is working away on that Harvard. So the Patreon subscribers, keep your name in there and everything. Stick around. Hello to everybody who's new, by the way, from the Patreon group. Thank you. We're going to be doing a draw for the Harvard design. He actually was showing me some photos. They're playing around with a couple different things, and he showed me the front radio. And my first reaction, I was on my iPhone, and I'm like, wow, that's a really nice looking 3D print. How long did that take? He goes, it's not a 3D print. It's just a graphic. And I was like, that's impressive. The fact that I had to go and zoom into my phone and actually verify that. He's got the shading and everything on the radio, front radio on the cowl, and it looks gorgeous. So stay tuned. Pardon me, I don't mean to have spittle going on here. We're holding off because we want to actually have him, the aircraft, ready and in the stream and everything, so he can show that all off. So, and then the second little thing I want to talk about real quickly and cool. Let me know if you guys want to do that traditional sticker run. No one has come back and told me yay or nay. There have been a few people that purchased these stickers. I've dropped. There's like no monetization on the stickers, so it's whatever their cost. I don't know if our supplier spreadsheet shirt will be doing any kind of sales, but I'll check and verify. But they usually have free shipping come closer to the end of the year. And again, everybody who's bought an RC After Hours t-shirt or a Blame Andre t-shirt, thank you very much. Again, there's tiny bit of revenue, but it does go right back into it, and I invest it back into the product that we're putting forth, or I am putting forth. Again, I want to dive into topics about what we want, what you guys want, what the listeners are looking for. I've actually had a lot of trouble trying to just claw details and information and get guests on the show recently. I don't know if it's just everybody's social media fatigued or just the industry is just playing around, but we'll talk about that as we go through the show. All right. Now, where's my screen? I'm going to go back to the chat group. So if you guys have any comments or anything like that, you can keep punching through, and I'm going to keep talking about what we're going to be talking about in this podcast. And so first and foremost, winter flying. Yesterday, I didn't have the right shoes on or nothing. And so by the time I got home, I think I was at the field almost 2.5, 3 hours, just shooting content, having fun, walking around in my hikers the entire time. My feet were so cold. Didn't have any equipment issues outside of the silly GoPro going down on me. But later in the season, we get into things like where your batteries, you start losing the punch. And that's on the higher CPAC batteries. That's the first thing I notice. First and foremost, I change aircrafts. I get rid of the bellylanders. I get rid of the high performance aircraft. So the previous weekend, I was actually flying the Mamba. And I went up, and it was like my last flight of the day. No cameras, just having fun. And I started off okay, but mid-flight through, I started noticing my dexterity, the fluidness in my hands was dropping off, and therefore the feeling of the airplane was all wrong. And like I'd go and I'd roll and try and do a knife edge, and then I popped out and everything, and yeah, it was just like, okay, so this aircraft, as much as I enjoy flying this aircraft, needs the pilot to be in maximum. And there's a video from years ago where I gave myself my first ever frostbite. I was flying my EF Extra and the EFX Racer, and I took off and threw, and I was going, and I came in to land, and I just stuffed the airplane in, and I'm in the car afterwards. And I've been in the military. I've shot professionally E&G News outside where your hand is up there, and I never froze my fingers. Went flying, froze my fingers, and it hurt. Like when the hands were coming back together and everything, it was excruciating. So totally focused on planes that'll let me use my transmitter mid, or planes that'll have a super short flight and everything. I've got a new set of gloves, and I like them, but they feel, even though they've got the tactile and everything, they still feel slippery on the controls. So I got to get used to that and got to relax, and just, you always have the sensation that you're going to slide off the remote or something. But Alex said something about battery warmers. So what I do is I don't have it with me right now. Unfortunately, it's in the back of the shop after flying. I have a soft cooler, a neoprene cooler or whatever, and I put a hard case inside that, just something from the dollar store. My battery bag goes in that, and then if it's really cold, the batteries are always in the car, so they're out of the wind and everything. And then batteries last longer than fingers these days. Yes, thanks, Sean, from Defiant Wings. So actually, when it's really cold, I have a spare digital thermometer. I stick that in there, and then I do things like I heat up a bean bag or those gel packs and throw them in with the battery bag. Those are in the extreme conditions, but I've flown in minus 35, and it can be in the minus 30s, 20s, and 30s. If the wind is low and the sun is out, it's very sustainable once you start actually layering up properly, and that is a huge thing. But I always tell you, adjust your flying expectations. So, and try out that remote with the bag. I have a really nice, I think it's a Turnigy bag with a full display, and the difference between the 9X, so the Spectrum, and the Turnigy or the FR Sky radio. I'm just throwing names out here, unfortunately. The difference between my Spectrum DX9 and my FR Sky Tyrannus is very noticeable based on the hook where the lanyard goes. And I always have the lanyard on there just because I don't want to drop anything, and I've dropped my DX9 once before, and I'm like, no. do I fly in gloves? That's the question from Alex. Yes, and I'll get back to that in a second. With the transmitter mitt, you need to get used to where your switches are, and this is one of the things I'm still struggling with the difference between reprogramming all the models when you do that input from spectrum for your model. Like I said, everything is on the left hand side, and I prefer to throw my rates and my flaps with my right hand and control my aileron, because I'm a hybrid, right? I got my thumb on my throttle and I'm pinching with it, so I can get my middle finger up to my rates or whatever, but adjust all those expectations. So you want to fly with planes that are a little bit more calm, a little bit more forgiving, especially when it's really cold, because when I was flying the EC1500 on the drop video, I was grabbing even without the transmitter mitt, with the gloves on, I was grabbing, flaps when I wanted to do rates and vice versa. And so all of a sudden I'm full flaps and high rates, and the plane is wigging out on me and everything. So yes, Alex, I do fly gloves, and I have a variety of gloves. So I've got the thinner neoprene type with the they've got the sensor pads and everything for working with the phones. I also have a set of mitts where I can flop and expose my fingers, and those are good. So like I said, if you take your 7-minute plane and just factor in battery performance and then your own performance and reduce yourself down about a minute or two. So like, okay, 5-minute flight, land, cover your hands up after you've recovered, give your fingers that minute or a couple of minutes to bring back those dexterity and go. And then of course, obviously it's toque on the head and everything. I have, winter for extreme winter, I've got the boots. I'll have like a thermal layer on plus the winter pants and everything. So this is also stuff I'm going to cover in another video. I'll go through, and I almost thought about doing it this weekend, but honestly it wasn't cold enough to make the point of what it's like. And things like if I'm in the field and I want to fly back to back, I'll take that second battery, and I'll actually normally you can put them in your pocket, but they actually have got to get into a closer layer to your body so they stay warm. So I'll put them on the inside, or if I'm wearing a hoodie, they'll go into my hoodie pocket. But then of course you're unzipping your jacket, so all of a sudden you're blowing away all that warm air or heat that you built up. So yeah, what's even crazier is I will wear the same jacket throughout the year. So it's just those additional layers that you put on underneath, and we just get used to it. But like, people were commenting on my last video that I looked really cold, and I'm like, that was mild. We're gonna get lower and lower and lower, and then I don't take as many planes as well. When I go and I know it's a super cold day, I'll go and I'll change up the airplanes and everything. And speaking of that, in my notes, I'm like discussing, belly landers and playing with gears. If the flights are short and they're simple enough, but the problem with like a hand-launched plane is you can't do it with the transmitter mitt. I've tried it, and it's poorly, right? Because you'll bump the throttle, or worse, the throttle will drop and you can't get your hand back inside that mitt fast enough. And so I tend to make a decision about what airplane I will fly. So forgiving is the biggest thing I can say. If the plane is forgiving and you can get away with a toss and fly for a couple minutes and land and recover and everything, go for it. If not, it's a plane with gear. Now, yesterday I flew, you can see it in the background on the wrong arm there. Yesterday I flew with the Tundra for the very first time, and I've had this airplane for 5-6 years, and I giggled because I didn't realize that I could. I'd always thought, with the gear and everything, the floats, it was too tall to fit in the back of the car. So I never bothered with it. I just flew the thing on the skis, and it fit in the car. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, so I'm going to go fly this thing on floats. Flew it yesterday, loved it. You know what I discovered I don't like about the floats? Is after the flight, I have to store this airplane. I can't, like when you're bringing it out to the car, or if you're inside your house, you want to stand the plane up. It's a high wing plane with a 1,700 millimeter wingspan. 1,500 maybe. The point is, it's in the porch now, and it's on its floats, taking up all the space. Normally, if I'm on the wheels or everything, I stand it up and put the prop down to the ground, right? You can't do that with the floats, and even worse, if you do that, you run the risk of actually breaking the floats, because forward of the plane is a lot of weight and it's foam. I mean, here's one of the floats from the UMX Timber, right? So I think that plane, as much as I enjoyed that video and enjoyed flying it, I really do think I'm going to go back to the skis. And there's nothing wrong between the two of them. On floats, the problem is you've got very little rudder authority. Even there's enough. Now, the benefit of floats is it soaks up all those bumps and everything in the snow, and especially if you fly in a field. We fly in a field off of school, so the kids run around and people are out and everything, stuff like that, so that it's not a perfect surface. So with skis, you run the risk of hitting a divot and actually going in. And that is very prevalent in like a lower wing plane like the Pawnee, because it's a low wing. The flaps are dragging in the snow and everything, and it really has struggled to take off, but it will get up. But like I said, I really enjoyed flying that Tundra on the skis. The floats, but I am going to go back to the skis because then I can store it at the end of the day back where I normally put it and not worry about it. So, those floats, you say, what is Andre going to use those floats on? I really want to test the EC1500 very soon, very soon, and put that plane up on the skis that come with it, because those are really nice design. But Pete from her E-Flight and Horizon was saying, watch out, they flex a little bit, or you can run into some tendencies, and you don't want to break those. But those floats, those Hobby King floats, the Durafly floats, might actually be, I can probably modify them and they will work with that airplane. And there's a video where they were out in a boat and they were doing the EC1500 touch and goes off the water and everything. So we'll see. So that the EC1500 is going to go. The other issue with the big planes, once you start adding the floats and everything, is you really have to play with the fleet. And I've noticed all of a sudden with the fleet changing up, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to avoid flying the same airplanes all the time, right? But like as soon as you throw in a big high wing or something like that, you run out of trunk space. So I'm like very cognitive looking at other airplanes and how much FPV will I do this winter? I don't know. I used to bring a section of plywood to the field, and yes, the foam, yes, that's another really awesome point Delta Dart makes about putting something to land on, especially for the multi-rotors. And we'll talk about that too throughout the podcast, the indoor flying, but flying multi-rotors or copters or helicopters or anything like that. I have those neoprene pieces, so really fun just to clear off some foam or some snow, drop them down and take off and have a landing pad. But you've got to have something that's got enough weight that the prop wash doesn't lift it off. So even those foldable quadcopter landing pads work really well, and I've seen those be used a lot. Or you just take off from the hood of your car, right? Depends on the craft, right? Alex says, I'm seeing some of this chatter right now. I'll flip over my screen so I can read it. Let's see. Alex says the floats can be cumbersome, but they are easy to install. Yeah. Yes, valid. The ones on the Tundra, I think it's about 4 to 8 screws. So the nice thing with the floats, so the skis is like pop off the wheels and put it on. And depending on the age of the aircraft too, if you start removing those screws and everything, that plastic can get softened up and chewed up over time. So I tend to be really careful about what I'm doing and changing them over. The nice part is I do have a multitude of high wings, so I can try some different settings. I'll put the Fun Cub. Actually, the Fun Cub I don't tend to put on skis. I find that landing gear, and that's something else that you will notice too, is when you switch to your skis, if you do use those, your depth between the ground and your prop goes away. So that's something you have to be very cognizant of, especially in icy stuff, because if you come down a little too hard, you can start chewing up your prop and everything. So, and I've lost all my, I haven't lost my show notes. I've lost all the website stuff. There we go. It's back. Okay. So moving on, I loved the Tundra on floats. Like I said, I'm probably going to go skis. Looking forward to trying the EC1500. So, talking about winter builds and stuff to do throughout the winter, and I mentioned indoor flying, and I have rediscovered how much I enjoy the silly, tiny whoops and everything. This is my Inductrix Pro I'm holding in my hand, so your 1S 500s, and I've got some other aircraft, some other quads and everything that are a little bit more advanced and better cameras and everything. They're flyable indoors, but I almost think there's a little too much mass. So these little Inductrix styles, or little tiny whoops, are great. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed flying them and just went through it. Yeah, they'll fly outside and stuff like this. So it's just something else to do. It's another arsenal, and the newer ones are really impressive in that it gets dark. I don't know about anybody else, but it gets dark at 4 o'clock now. So indoors, even though like I remember flying some of the older stuff, and like you get into a dark corner and the camera would blank out completely. This has got a really impressive camera, and you just like you just need a little bit of ambient light, and pow, you can see where you're going. So these are fun. It made me wish I had more 1S500 batteries, but they're expensive for what they are. They're super crazy expensive, at least here in Canada. I mean, the shipping on stuff like this, a Venom 1S500 is crazy. So, yeah, if you don't have a little multi-rotor for flying around inside the house, you're missing a lot of fun. I still have two of the smaller inductors, the yellow ones, because they go through the rungs. This one won't go through your banister's rungs. Like you got to go around them. But the little yellow ones would go through. But the battery power on this one is far more impressive, and it's got meow mode. Now, the issue with meow mode, turtle mode, and all this stuff is it tends to spin the props off, I noticed. So there's a prop somewhere in this basement. I don't know where it went. I flipped it over and it shot off, and I still haven't found it. So the tip I was told, just a little CA glue on the shaft when you put a new prop on and go. But the lights work really well. The range is really impressive with these. I don't know. I tend to actually fly it with my FPV monitor because I can just sit down. The goggles are great, and then I have a spare receiver that I can slap on the big television. It's too much latency to do it, but if James is watching me fly, can't get him to fly, but gotta have those props on the deck. Yeah, no kidding. Spare props all the time, and it's neat to see this technology advance, and they're still producing 1S aircraft or 1S quads, and they seem to be getting more and more efficient, and the battery times seem to be going up and up and up. But it's, for me, the 500s have lasted. I don't know about anybody with the 200s. I find they have such a short lifespan that I've always stepped away from a lot of the 1S aircraft, planes too, because you get there and like, oh, this battery doesn't work, this battery doesn't work, this battery doesn't work. But again, this is part of your winter arsenal, a little tiny whoop inductress style. I don't even know if Blade and Horizon are going to be producing or releasing yet another version of this, but we'll see. So talking about the builds, everybody, when Defiant Wings is getting answered questions about stock, that's awesome. That's asked it on the podcast. I flew that one actually. This one is above my head. So the nice thing about the winter is if you've got, and they said, it's funny. It's one of those old car analogies. The Canadians have the best cars because they have 6 months to work on them, classic cars. This is a time of year where you can start, working on those long-term projects. I've got more projects than I got fingers, right? But it's nice to be able to, step back from the fleet and go, okay, what do I want to fly next year? What do I need to do maintenance on? What are unfinished stuff? And I've got tons of wings to finish. I've got that big balsa biplane. I want to work on the extra, and I'll talk about that in a bit. And last weekend I was flying my Defiant Wing Renegade, and I think I sorted out a problem, but I've actually ordered some more gear. But again, this aircraft, even though it's all white and I'm not adding paint because I don't add weight, it's going to see a lot of winter flying too, and I'll be testing different batteries and different cycles through it and everything in different FPV scenarios. And whether I fly line of sight or FPV, the plane is just a hoot. And I don't have this in my show notes, but earlier in the week, Alex from Video Aerial System released his Air Combat IR system, which has a receiver on board. It's got an IR emitter, and he said if you've run a night vision or a night spec FPV camera, you can actually see the IR mechanism flying. And the real cool part of it, it's fairly well contained. And the control board for this hooks into your servos and your motor, so you can actually control and threshold it a little bit as far as how far your motors react and everything. And, if your aileron servos start cutting out and so forth. So it looks like it's a lot of fun. $35 US. I think it was like $11 US more to ship it to Canada. So I'm working on the guys locally to see if anybody's interested in actually putting a couple of those things in. It would be really cool if someone had a tank or something, some kind of ground-based mechanism on a 180 base servo that you could spin around and see it. But I don't know if the range of the firing mechanism is intense enough to actually make it work. But very cool. And I had questions about whether I thought the Renegade from Defiant Wings would be a suitable combat aircraft. I think it would. You definitely would want your differential thrust so you could spin that thing around, because obviously it's a 3 control. I didn't fly my Defiant this weekend, but what I did over the week while I was playing around with the ESC problems was I actually dialed in some reflex or some flaperons into the aileron servos. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how slow and low I can get this thing, because I was zipping it around last weekend and playing with it and really pushing that poor and I think it's the back that went bad, because once I put another one in there, but we'll see. It could have been the cold as well, who knows. But again, that's one of the things about winter is you can go through it. So I have some flight test projects. I don't know if anybody else has got any scratch build projects. There's balsa projects, there's mega build projects, there's some mini stuff, and playing with all the various techs and learning. I want to learn iNav and everything, and there's always something to do. There's always something, and just having that back pocket project for when it's just snowing way too much or the conditions are really bad. So a lot of you guys don't have to deal with some of the weather conditions that are not really, prevent you from flying, but you could have really extreme cold temperatures, really extreme cold winds, or just rain. A lot of you tell me that it's not the bad weather or the bad winter conditions, but it's just wet and rainy for your winter. So everybody's got a little bit of different story, but having those background projects, and for myself, like I said, got a ton of things I want to do, and just really recognizing this year how kind of pushed off a lot of objectives and a lot of things that I wanted to try and get myself through. Delta Dart says he's got quite a lot of projects in the background, working on a 600 size Sea King heli. Oh, that would be so cool looking. Gray, I guess the old matte gray, so it looks old and dated, I'm assuming. Alex says Painless 360 has a great video series on iNav. Yep, there's tons of sources out there too. And for me, the iNav projects will come back to, I've got about 3 or 4 wings that I'll be enabling with them. And we know, if you've watched the video, you know that I did a flight attempt on the poor Skyhunter twin, and that just got rifled into the ground. So that's coming along. I've actually ordered I got some really excellent recommendations on what to do about it. Gone back, I've put some shims and just use some prop washers to change the shim line of the thrust line of the motors, and I've ordered some grip tape for the belly so I can just get a little extra grip. I thought about putting landing gear and everything, and I'm like, nope, that's not the principle of this airplane. So again, that aircraft long term will be iNav. Maybe if the snow is soft and everything, that will be the time to test it, and try the iNav auto launch, where you literally put the remote on the ground, shake the airplane, and throw it into the air. Nothing intimidating about doing that, right? So, but that's a good time of year just to sit back with the technology, learn it up and everything. And I've got a couple wings that some iNav systems are going to go into as well. I'm waiting. I don't know anybody else, but the postal system right now is super lethargic in giving us updates and everything. So again, like I said, I've got a couple flight test kits in the back that I'm going to decide on which one I want to build. Got my balsa plane, so that one's a priority. I've got that smaller T-30 trainer that's going to be a build. I got a couple of big builds that I'm throwing around in my head. I really want to get another bomber in and everything like that. But, and we're talking foam board stuff. Because, excellent. Oh, you got a Renegade too. Renegade, I tell you, that plane, that Renegade is high on my list as far as top plane for 2020 for me. It ticks off so many boxes, and we'll talk about the 2020 review coming up, because as usual, I'm going to want your input. So there we go. Let's jump into the new products page right now. So I'm going to bring up the website and everything, because there have been some really big doozies that have come out recently. And we're going to start off with, I don't think I talked about this in the last show. I don't know who watched the Hangar 9 OV10 Bronco video. My jaw dropped. I was very fortunate to have seen some previews from this bad boy, and it's such a beautiful airplane. It's just mind-bogglingly expensive, huge, but oh, if you had the budget to afford something like this, I would be all over this thing. Well, even just to transport it. I liked how they said it breaks down a lot better than most of the scale aircraft of this size, but this is a hefty beast. I'd do this electric. If I was to build this thing up, I would totally go electric, because trying to synchronize two gas motors, it's bad enough trying to get two motors to synchronize on electric. But look at that thing. Look how beautiful that thing looks in the air. Love the color. Love the scheme. I've always liked the twin with the high wing, the high elevator setup. And they've done it. But it's eye-watering. I think 2,200 Canadian, 1,600 US, and that's before you do the landing gear stuff. So yes, this is huge. This is huge class. You need the proper runway. Mind you, this thing would fly at most fields. I think most proper RC club fields, because you can slow this thing right down, do your tactical and everything. I almost do wonder, though. I mean, obviously I'm enjoying flying things like the EC-1500, the big twins and everything, but I almost wonder if something like this, if you would get tired of flying something this big. I don't think so, though. Looking at it in the profile, I guess it's one of these aircraft that would run a wide envelope. Let's see if we can get to the specs. I'm still getting used to the Horizon, their rebuilt website. It's got a whole bunch of features and everything. Okay, the finely detailed satin finish. Ali was on Facebook, and he was going over how he's enjoying this new covering material. But one of the things he said says it all depends on the aircraft. Things like my balsa biplane, I have to stick with the traditional film, because this vinyl stuff doesn't cover the gaps. So this airplane is fully sheeted, and that's the only way this new vinyl cover works. But it's stronger, it looks great and everything. Where are the specs? So I can tell you what this thing is all about. Yeah, I really don't like the new website, because it doesn't give everything we're looking for. There we go. Product specifications. So semi-symmetrical airfoil, 20 plus hours to build. Yeah, you take your time on this thing. Approximate flight time, 6 minutes, sold separately. I think he was running it on like 12S. Flying weight, 25,000 grams, 2,000 to 25,000. That's, gas or electric. You want a full 12 channel, 100 amp ESCs minimal. Motor sizes are 120 to 180, brushless. So length, 113 inches. Flying weight, they're saying 42 pounds. Prop sizes are 18. The prop range is 17 to 20, depending on what you want to use. 6 to 12S, 5,000 to 10,000 milliamps. And wingspan, 108 inches. So it isn't as crazy as some of the other aircraft, but because it's wide, it would definitely take up some space. Now, I really like the fact that they talked about how it comes apart. And I would, if I was to do this, I would go electric. I would be picking up their spec, the Hangar 9 retracts, because it's going to work off this thing. I wouldn't touch it on gas, just because the twin thing would probably be really crazy. But like I said, the elevator section comes off. The wings past the motor sections, they come off. So really, and even I think the elevator, some of the structure in the back supporting the elevator system could come off. So you could get this into a smaller vehicle. I don't think I would enjoy taking it apart and everything. And that's something that coming back to winter flying is something that you really have to be aware of. So I posed a question, and we're actually getting a lot of interaction on chat. So hold on here. Pose the question of, would you get tired of this thing? And most people are thinking the electric would. Sorry, I'm trying to read these comments here, make some light of them. Let's see. Looks amazing, huge. We totally need a trailer. Was Delta Tars thing, and then I posed a question, and Alex responded. I don't think so. I don't think you'd get burnt out. There's too many options and everything, paraphrasing and stuff like this. So it looks like it would be a really fun aircraft. Another question was, has anybody tried the Trent Palmer flight test plane? I haven't picked one up myself, but it looks like a nice little cub. Should be pretty good. Watch the paint. That was the only comment I saw from a couple people saying it might flake and stuff like that, but I think it's really good. I'm looking forward to their warehouse. They ship out of A-Main. A-Main is starting up a more eastern-based warehouse, which will make a difference to most people on the eastern board side, because I find the shipping really aggressive right now. So I haven't been ordering anything. Okay, back to the aircraft. So that was something huge and beautiful. If I won the lottery, oh buddy, I'd be all over this thing. I mean, like I said, it looks beautiful. Ali was so passionate in talking about his design experience on this aircraft. So you gotta love that kind of spark and fun. So keep bugging the man. I gotta keep bugging him to come on the show. Keep talking to him and everybody at Horizon, just trying to get someone on the podcast to discuss, because they've been on a roll, especially the Hangar 9 stuff this year. They've been really on a roll. So let's see. All right, next from Hobby King, we've got, obviously this has been talked about before, but this little Durafly Micro Tundra Classic. They've got the funky color too. This slips right into a very winter-friendly aircraft as far as I'm concerned. So I've got Canadian prices up, so it's not that bad. I think it's in the sub $100 US, and I think it's free shipping depending on where you are, and runs off a nice 2S 500 to 800 pack JST connector. So tons of options, tons of, throwing the floats, throwing some skis. Actually, surprisingly, you don't have skis for this thing, but we know the floats would work just fine. And looking at the skis, I kind of like how they've got they've got a spar in between the two skis, which reduces the overall vibration stuff, and then the drop down for the rear steering mechanism off the rudder. So if you're in the water and everything. So again, fun little aircraft. The reviews all looked pretty positive on it. And again, it's one of these planes that you set up. It's got its own little gyro system, and if I remember correctly, and like with my UMX Timber, I threw that in the car and we went flying. And I know a lot of guys tell me that they keep those batteries, and the only problem really, and there are adapters and everything too. And my UMX flew on 2S500s with a JST cable mod with no problem. And I have a lot of friends who tell me they keep those kind of aircrafts, and they've got just a simple 6-channel radio, and so they can get to the field and just fly that stuff, and it's almost independent of their normal ecosystem, so they can just rapid deployment, rapid flyer, which is something that's pretty good and crazy and fun to do in the winter when, it's clear for 15-20 minutes, throw on the jacket, let's go, and do a quick little flight. The other one from Hobby King recently released is the H King Hawker Hurricane, which again is a stabilized aircraft. It features doesn't feature retract. It features fixed gear that are removable. So your tiny belly lander classed aircraft, which is perfect again for those areas. Now, if you can't land an airplane or you want to keep the retracts or everything, generally in the winter, if you fly off any spot with a parking spot and you get good of it, for us, if we do it, we just got to be ready to do a little pole dancing and get around any of the poles. And usually by the end of the winter, the dexterity is up pretty good. I used to do that with my T-28 and just take off on the parking lot and then come in and do a quick hot landing. But again, so the Hurricane, same price, 135 Canadian. Let's see if I can tell you what that is in US. Ding. Oh, no, that didn't work out well at all. Where did I do that? Let's try US dollars. Come on. British, American. There you go. And then back to the Hurricane. I completely moved that to the wrong spot. There we go. $199 US. So that's pretty darn perfect for something that size. Again, the reviews look pretty positive, and it's a 750 mil wingspan, 30 inches, and flies off a 20 amp brushless 1300 kV motor. Four 9-gram servos. Has got a 3-bladed 8x6 prop, and will fly off a 3S 800 with a JST connector. So my bad, it wasn't a 2S ship. It's a 3S ship, which is pretty darn cool. All right, moving forward on the new aircraft, Dynam has been talking about this one, and hopefully we'll get on one of their reps very soon. The Dynam, and we're in the Hawker. I guess we're in that category of a manufacturer, but the Hunter, and they have a new one out, and this is the Dynam Hawker Hunter 70mm EDF system. These pictures are really tiny, but I'm going off the specs. It's EPO. It's got a 850mm wingspan, and it weighs in about 1,600 grams total weight. And it flies off a 6S 3300, 10 minutes flying time. 10 minutes 10 minutes assembly time, 5 minutes flying, which is an experienced pilot. Love the fact that it's in the Tiger scheme, and this is looks like it's Swiss Tiger scheme. It looks like a pretty nice little aircraft. This one will be coming out very soon. It's got fixed retracts and everything, so we shall see how well this looks. And again, I've touched base with Dynam, just hoping to actually bring in another manufacturer into the fold and talk about their manufacturing experience, because I know they're starting to talk about and produce their own radio systems and everything. So we'll see how it all goes. And this is, again, the Hurricane, the Hunter, Hawker. Dynam Hawker Hunter 70mm EDF. There we go. Speaking English today. And last on the list, I got two from Flight Test. It's been kind of fun to see these come out. These are two of John Overstreet's designs, and this is the Mighty Mini Zero. I'm so pumped about this. Loved my Mighty Mini Mustang, and this is John taking his design stuff and to the next layer. And this airplane looks good. I've wanted a Zero. For whatever reason, the Zero has been very elusive as far as aircraft come out. And it looks like they've gone the extra mile and created a nice little sticker bundle and everything. So let's see. What does this come in at? This one retails in at, where are the kits? So it's $30 US, whatever shipping out of the A-Main warehouse. It will run on the A-Pack or the F-Pack, which is basically your standard, punchy 3S system for a multi-rotor, so it's nothing too crazy. And what do they say about it? Let's see. It's 230 grams fully assembled without the battery, 30-inch wingspan, which is 762 millimeters. Battery is I think it is a 1300? Yes. No, sorry, it's 850. It's a 3S 850. So there are tons of batteries. I've got a bunch out of them, and it looks like it's a 4 to 6 channel style radio. So really cool. And then obviously standing beside it is the redeveloped Corsair. Same specs, same hardware, same price. If I had to pick, I think I would go with the Zero over the Corsair, but they both look great. Tell me in the comments and everything what you guys would think, which one you'd go for, if you'd go for both. But I'm probably going to add those to my winter build list once they become available and have them shipped in. And like I said, you can buy the kits, the PowerPod kits, which have everything you need to do to finish them, or you can just source and scrounge especially if they're taking regular 9-gram servos and they can take the weight. I know my Mini Mustang, when I built that up, I just used a 2204 motor and the 5-inch 3-blade prop and some 5-gram servos, and it flies great. Same power system almost. So having the Zero in the collection probably would be ultimately build both, but I would go for the Zero. So looking forward to a lot of stuff. In the most recent Flight Test video where they flew the mailbox, the A10 mailbox, and I was giggling away as that poor thing went into the deck because the elevator failed. They showed the new A10 that John's been working. It's a little bit smaller, probably going to run off actual EDFs and everything. So that is pretty darn cool. So, and again, we're waiting on our friends from Hangar RC to have their new aircraft, the I don't even think they have it out listed on their website yet, but we're waiting on the them to release. No, they don't have it here, unfortunately. But we're waiting for the release of the Harvard. Texan. I say Harvard because I'm Canadian, right? And they better have a Canadian scheme, Sam. Gonna be looking for that. But and going back to the flight test stuff, they have so much stuff in the pipe. I can't wait to see what they come up with. Again, one of the sore points for 2020 obviously was us not getting out to Ohio to celebrate Flight Fest, but hopefully next year things will be a little bit more level and we'll be able to pick up a bunch of new models. So I've been slowly waiting on all that stuff to materialize and come together. So okay, talking about things into 2021. Last year I did the survey. Leave comments in the show and about your best picks, and I'll build the entire, I'll build the spreadsheet like I did last year in Google Docs, and people can go in there and pick your best aircraft, and we'll break up the categories. But leave the comments in the show or email me. That's rcafterhourspodcast@gmail.com, and just fill it in what you think the best aircraft. I'm kind of biased and partial. Like I said, that Renegade really impressed me, but there have been some really neat aircraft to come out in 2020, even though things, I feel like the industry kind of pulled back a little bit. We saw some bursts near the beginning of and then I think they just kind of slowly drew it back a little bit to hold off because, I'm sure they see that people aren't spending. Everybody's being super cautious and everything. But I guess that's where the scratch building really probably picked up. So who knows? I'd like to get a whole bunch more people from the industry. So in talking about everything and all these aspects. So if you have contacts, if you've got people's ears, make sure, tell them about the podcast, tell them about the show. Make sure you're leaving comments and suggestions and all that stuff on your podcast apps. That makes a huge push for the show. I've been renaming some stuff on iTunes because iTunes keeps changing their categories. I added things like RC Planes that was never in the title. So now when you search RC Planes, the RC After Hours podcast shows up, and it just makes it more searchable. But again, like I said, my push and my goals for 21 and looking already, because December is going to happen like that for us, we know, is just to keep pushing and keep making links into the industry and everything so we can keep those conversations going. And like I said, if you've got suggestions, if you've got ideas of people who we can talk to or who you'd like to, feature in the hot seat, by all means, email me, message me. Everybody knows how to get everybody through. Horizons consistently rebuilt of old designs has ruined the new product segment. Oh, interesting feeling, Alex. I can see, if they feel like they can't, make a big dent, but there's always a call for classics. You know what I want to see from Horizon, to be honest, is I want another Spitfire. Don't know why. I just love Spitfires. Crazy me, right? But I also, I was funny because I was looking at my biplanes, and it would be really fun to have a biplane to fly in the winter, but I don't want to take my PT-17 out. It looks too nice. And my old Park Zone SE5A and the Albatross, no, not trusting those. Plus, those are belly-loaded batteries. So as soon as you put skis in the cold and everything, that just takes away all the enjoyment of trying to get that airplane up into the air and everything. So again, start thinking about your top your top planes. I will go and I'll reactivate the that list that I created last year, and we'll give you out the categories. And I don't have it available right now in front of me. Mamba and skis, John, you missed it earlier in the show. I flew the Mamba in the cold, and I was so twitchy, and my hands were so cold that the plane was just, because the Mamba will lock into a position when you're in stabilized mode. Out of stabilized mode, the plane is fun, but it's almost a little intimidating. So in stabilized mode, all of a sudden you're locked and you're flying in a real spot, and then you go and put a little bit of the elevator input into it, and the thing will spiral off and do its own craziness and everything. So it's like land. So I'd probably like a different style biplane, something a little bit more gentle, and that goes back to if you listened and been tuned in earlier in the show, John. I can bust my friends up. That's fun. Hey, Sam from Hangar RC just popped in. How you doing, Sam? We were just talking about you and your Texan or Harvard giveaway, which stay tuned. As soon as he tells me he's ready to go, we will get together and we will do a quick little YouTube video together and release those to the Patreon. So there's your little incentive to become a Patreon subscriber and supporter of the podcast. It's really, I don't want to push that on people, but it's, hey, it helps the show. It provides a little bit of resource management for me and everything, getting everything to the show. And once, I don't know where I'm going with that. Honestly, if you can do it, awesome. If you can't, awesome. That's how I always feel about doing the Patreon thing. That's something that was started years ago, and it just keeps the funding going, keeps the URL domain going, keeps the show going as far as the cost for running the Podbean subscription every week and everything. Everything else, it's about me and just pushing out the show because I can do it and because I enjoy it. So, man, I've rambled a lot. Sam just says that we just finished filming the build video. They just finished filming the build video yesterday or last night, so that's awesome, which means we're getting closer and closer to that release. Okay, enough rambling. I want to thank everybody who tuned in live during the show. It was kind of a last-minute thing, and like I said, really looking forward to the upcoming shows where we talk about 2021. We talk about what we thought about 2020 and doing a review and all the other things. Again, let me know who you'd like to see on the podcast and what you're interested in talking about, because I will make that happen. Again, I'm Andre. You have been listening to the RC After Hours podcast, and again, thank you for being a part of this amazing experience. Have a great week. Talk to you later. That was a lot of fun, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in for the live podcast. It's all done. It's all wrapped up. Hope the audio worked out really well. I've got a new pop filter on the microphone, and hopefully the levels turn out really good. It was, hey, Alex, thanks for popping in and everything. And then, the color commentary was awesome. John, Sam, all the guys, Delta Dart, everybody. It's funny, I can only still see a little bit, so I have to turn my head over to see the other spots. Podcast was great. Going to finish off the show. I'll have this one out very shortly and editing away and enjoying Sunday. Probably should get out flying, but I'm going to take care of a bunch of other stuff for around the house. So everybody have an awesome weekend. I hope everybody had a really nice Thanksgiving weekend. If you picked up any cool toys, make sure you send in some photos or Instagram that stuff and over to the RC After Hours page and everything, and I'll be sure to retweet them and everything or re-share them. So I'm Andre. Thanks for watching. Ciao. Chris, you showed up like at the end of the show. What the heck, man? We'll get you on next podcast. How's that sound, man? Hey. We'll talk about some of your new stuff. All right, I got to go. Bye.